Hello, welcome, and let's get started. First, you can download the free printable pattern from the description. You will notice that there are 3 sizes. Be sure to print the actual size and check your measurements. I will be making the adult size. Just to let you know, the extra large is very large and it'll probably fit somebody with a larger face or maybe somebody with a beard. This is what you will need. You'll need your pattern, measuring tape, 100% cotton fabric, scissors, pins, an iron, wire for the nose, a wire cutter, t-shirt for ear loops, crochet hook, which is optional, and a filter, and of course you'll need your sewing machine and thread. I will be using an 18 gauge coated copper wire. I will put a link in the description on where you can get this. You will cut them into 3.5-inch strips and turn the ends in and squeeze. Start by cutting your pattern. Place your pattern on the fabric with your fabric doubled and the pattern facing upwards. This is the line to use for the filter pocket. Using your pattern, we are going to put the right sides of our fabric together and cut 2 pieces of the main fabric, 2 pieces for a liner, and then where that pattern has that line in there, we're going to cut 2 pieces for the filter pocket. Make sure that you have printed fabric that your pattern pieces are opposite and facing upwards. If you have an extension table on your sewing machine, you can remove it now for easier sewing. Using a 1/4 inch seam allowance with right sides together, start by sewing the curved ends together of each piece. So here we have the filter pocket. And then we will repeat this for the liner. And again for our main fabric, always making sure your right sides are together. This is how it should look so far. With your filter pocket, we are going to fold the edge over 1/8 of an inch and press with an iron, and then we're going to fold over and press again. Do this for both sides. We can then stitch the ends of the filter pocket. Trim all curved ends about half the distance or 1/8 inch so we have less bulk on the mask. We're then going to start from the bottom of the mask and we're going to stitch the center seam down. I usually like to fold it over to the right. So putting it into the machine, stitching very close to that center seam, let's stitch that seam down. You want to stitch very close to that center seam, and a good hint while you're stitching is to kind of pull the fabric open so we know we have that open seam. Take your time with this, making sure that it sits flat, and then you can always look on the other side as well just to double check. This gives a nice finish and makes it flat for more comfort. Do this for all three pieces. Again, start from the bottom and fold it over to the right and make it flat, sewing close to that center seam. We can now place our filter pocket on top of the liner with both of the right sides facing upwards. Pin in place. Stitch a 1/8 inch along the top and the bottom. This is how your liner should look. We can now place our main fabric with right sides together and pinning it on top of the liner. We will leave one end open and we're going to stitch all the way around with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I will be starting at the top of my fabric. And stop leaving that end open. We will then trim our corners and notch the curve. So trim the corners of the open end. And on the other end, I just trim the corners and I also trim the side, just taking out a little extra bulk. And then you can put about 3 or 4 notches in the curve of the top of the mask. We can now turn our mask right side out. You can then push out the corners and press with an iron. Turn your open end under and press. We will stitch the bottom and one side of the mask with a 1/8 inch seam allowance. And the top of the mask, we're going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance so we have room to fit the wire. I am starting on the bottom of my mask with a 1/8 inch seam. If your opening is on the opposite side and starting at the top, just start yours with the 1/4 inch seam and work your way around. So now going along the top, we will do 1/4 inch. Make sure to leave your opening. We can now insert the wire. Sometimes it can be a little tricky to get it through the center, but just be patient and it should go through. Make sure your wire is placed in the center. We will then stitch on each side of the wire to hold it into place. We can now fold in each end for the ear loop and stitch down. To make ear loops, I like to use a t-shirt. Cut strips about 3/4 inches in width off of the end of a t-shirt. If you don't have a rotary cutter, you can also just use scissors. Stretch out the fabric. You can cut your strips about 10 inches long. Using a crochet hook, or you can just use a safety pin, pull the ear loops through. Tie the ends together. Make sure to adjust the size on your ears before you tighten. Once you have the right size, you can pull tight, trim the ends, and tuck it under for a nice look. Thank you for watching. Be sure to watch the end on a recommendation for a filter and how to insert it. Please be sure to like and subscribe for more of these videos.